want to show you what that no-fly zone actually looks like. A no-fly zone, to be very clear, basically means no aircraft from Russia can enter North American airspace, and no aircraft from here obviously will enter Russian airspace because it's obviously a reciprocal motion. So just to give you a sense of what airspace encompasses as far as Russia is concerned and what North America is concerned. So there's going to be a huge fallout to this, Akshita. We've been seeing it as well as far as the airline industry is concerned, as far as the price of freight and cargo is concerned. But this is perhaps the biggest economic move just yet, because remember that Russia and the United States are also major trade partners. If you don't have aircraft through which a large amount of trade actually goes, just imagine complete isolation between both these countries.
And
it's
what you're seeing covered here, Shiv, is almost 30 countries in all that have gone ahead and said that Russian flights can't fly over any of their airspaces. And you can imagine what that really means. It's not just limited to a problem and a dent on Russia, but also on these countries as well. Because Russia, in tit-for-tat moves, has gone ahead and also imposed their own restrictions on countries flying their aircrafts or flights over their airspace.
Gaurav is with us. Gaurav, I wanted to get your word in from, from Kyiv on this airspace closure that Biden has announced. That's actually one of the biggest actions that's taken place so far. We've seen a list of, sanctions over the last 7 days, but North American airspace closure, this is beyond Cold War era hostility now between both sides.
You're absolutely right. And every step that the world takes against Russia actually emboldens and empowers the people here in Ukraine. Last night at a bomb shelter, we had a long conversation. So about 35 countries so far had banned overflight of Russian aircraft. And this, they said, would play a key role in crippling the economy. Point one. Point two, the fact that the president is also talking about going after oligarchs. Now, that is where it is hoped here in Ukraine that this will turn a section of the leadership and power lobbies in Russia against President Putin. If you go after the funds of oligarchs, go after their big yachts, their aircraft, their massive homes across Europe, which is what United States and Europe now intend to do. They have these details that $650 billion worthless, saying the American president, Russian assets are all worthless. Shiv, this also will have a major impact in times to come on Russian military hardware, whether it's effective or ineffective. If Russian military hardware, considered amongst the best in the world, doesn't enable Russian army or the armed forces to take over a country like Ukraine, what does this speak about the Russian might or military hardware? So there are massive consequences. While in all of this, Shiv, what is also being said, and you've analyzed this, you and Akshita, with our guests in the past, China perhaps would be the biggest gainer. US may lose some, Russia may lose some, Europe will lose some. China emerges as a big gainer in terms of getting Russia. Russia will look to China to get out of the situation. And now it remains to be seen whether America can put enough pressure on China to ensure that Russia is completely isolated, or will China give Russia that breathing space? But here, every measure being taken against Russia emboldens and empowers people to fight against Russia. And this is going to be a very bitter fight in the days and weeks ahead. Yesterday we were in the heart of Kiev. We were advised to come to the outskirts. Now we are being told that the fight could come from any side. And the further away from Kiev you are, the better it would be. So extremely precarious situation on ground right now.
Gaurav, just stay with me, because we're getting in updates constantly of what's happening in your city as well, in Kiev right now. That there are incidents of massive fighting that's led to also a huge amount of damage on the ground in Kyiv. Yesterday, we spoke about a TV tower being completely destroyed. Now there's an entire neighborhood called Borodyanka that's on fire, as cities are now turning into ruins, Shiv.
Absolutely. The devastating aftermath of missiles raining down on this suburb of Kyiv has turned it once again into a landscape of total rubble, a hellscape really. Gaurav, the suburbs of Kyiv clearly being attacked. That war convoy that we've been seeing is about 25 kilometers, we are told, away from the capital city. It's moving slowly because they are being met with some resistance from the Ukrainian ground forces. But these fresh images from Borodyanka, which is a suburb of Kiev, completely devastated, reduced to rubble. it is pretty clear that from Hostomel to Borodyanka, the Russian forces are trying to soften as they move inside.
Shiv, the aim is to ensure that there is no one able to stop them. But, you know, the fact that you mentioned that people are stopping them, resistance is being met. The TV tower was devastated when that was the aim, so that information, people here do not have access to information. TV tower destroyed also meant that people were forced to go to internet to get news. That was the only way news could be broadcast, and that is where all of this information is coming in. As Russian forces move forward, and Kyiv is a huge city. They are taking down neighborhoods, but there are a lot of pitched battles that are being reported on the outskirts of Kyiv. We are, of course, on another side. We are on the western flank. The fights are happening in the eastern flank as the Russian forces advance from north, east and south, and we're on the western flank of Kyiv at this point of time, Shiv. But the apprehension very clearly is that the situation will only go south from here. It will only deteriorate in the hours and days ahead.
It's a situation that is rapidly escalating because basically what's happening right now, Akshita and Gaurav, is that from a standoff distance, you know, this is damage. You know, Gaurav, the images on our screen are of damage that's not been caused in close quarter fighting. This is obviously standoff range shelling or you know, cruise missiles or bombing or air power, you know, air launched standoff range missiles that have actually done this damage. Because you know, from the little that I may know about this kind of thing, that, you know, this doesn't look like forces on the ground causing this kind of damage. These are high impact weapons delivered from a long range. So clearly, you know, either across the border in Belarus, Gaurav, you know, those support units are targeting, you know, the outskirts of Kyiv, perhaps in a kind of method to soften things up, demoralize forces on the ground, and then kind of open the way for this big convoy to arrive.
Shiv, that could well be the case, you know, either using air-launched weapons or using standoff weapons, and not yet, you're absolutely right in terms of not using grads or RT, but using missiles that can be fired from across the border. Those several missile batteries have also been brought inside the country now, which is what the Ukrainian defense minister had talked about, taking down one such missile convoy when they destroyed the missile carrier with the Ray-Bacta Turkish unmanned combat aerial vehicle. But many more coming in, that 63-kilometer long convoy that you were talking about. Shiv, on ground, people are still resisting them. And when we ask them, with these Molotov cocktails and small arms and AK-47s, how will you resist the Russian army coming with the 63-kilometer long convoy? And they said the Russians think there is no resistance, but there is resistance in every nook and cranny. And there is indeed, you know, they did not let us film this on camera because they said it's military information that will go out. But they do have not just surface-to-air missiles, but a lot of anti-tank guided missiles on roads. I mean, you would expect tank battles taking place in the Thar desert or that kind of an environment, but here you have tanks moving down the same roads that you know, Mercedes-Benz and other cars zip down on BMWs, zip down the highways here. So you have tanks coming on those roads. There are machine gun nests sighted, and you have ATGM nests sighted on roadsides to take down that convoy one after the other in fields around. So that is how this operation is currently being fought on ground by the Ukrainians, desperately needing air support and surface-to-air missiles, which apparently they're still waiting for, or some, at least in local media, the information is some systems have started coming in.
Right. Gaurav, just one more question to you. You know, yesterday there were these images that emerged of a TV tower being destroyed. So I want to understand from you, has there been any, you know, communication blackout? Because we also heard that channels were immediately down, news channels weren't broadcasting in Ukraine after that.
So, you know, you're absolutely right. When that TV tower was destroyed, that was the aim. But people immediately then switched on to the internet for live broadcast. Internet, fortunately, is still working, and that it actually remains to be seen how long will internet work. The location where we are, again, no satellite broadcast happening, but all information still coming in on television through internet. People are watching live television, and including ours, incidentally. I mean, I was very pleasantly surprised. We were anchoring a special show on the roadside, and people had immediately gone on to India Today, and they were watching that broadcast and telling us, see, we are watching your broadcast. So it's like that here. Internet is still working and people are able to communicate. But what happens when this internet goes down? How does one get hold of Starlink? There was a lot of curiosity yesterday about getting Elon Musk's Starlink, so that in case internet goes down, people can still remain in touch with each other, and especially the military leadership is trying to remain in contact to have access not just to bigger information, but coordinate offensive with locals here, because now every citizen of this country virtually, every able-bodied man or woman is a fighter in this fight against Russia.
You know, Ukrainian cities being turned into rubble one after the other, citizens being compelled to pick up arms. How long can this actually stretch on for is really the big question. How much more aggression and damage is sustainable for a country like Ukraine? How many more devastated cities can this country actually take before it bows to Putin? What is that red line that needs to be crossed? 24 hours is the deadline, we are told. Today happens to be the 7th day. After today, the pressure on Putin at the Kremlin is going to be overwhelming. He's already failed to create, a sense of urgency in finishing his objectives in the 48 to 72 hours that he had perhaps promised the oligarchs in Russia. He has failed to, get control of the situation without Russia bearing the brunt. And now 7 days have passed. It's making Putin look really bad. And here's how Russia is being hit even more. As many as 29 countries have actually banned flights from Russian airspace and Russian airplanes. In a tit-for-tat move, Russia has also, of course, barred airlines from 36 countries entering into their airspace. The economic cost, especially for the airlines industry after the COVID pandemic, is going to be devastating. It's just begun.